Good morning, Bankbridge students. Today I'm here to talk about carpentry and life skills. So the first thing you need to do whenever you walk into a wood shop or any other kind of shop is to put on safety glasses. There are many different styles and designs, but the whole idea is that they cover your eyes completely from any flying wood chips, metal chips, or any other thing that could get stuck in your eyes and injure you. It's very important to keep these on. We're going to be reviewing some hand tools I have laid out here on the table. Okay, students, so here we go. So real quick review on these hand tools. Now some of these things do not look like the tools that are in the shop because some of these tools are older than I am. As I say all the time, this is my favorite tool of all time. This is a combination square. It's a combination of tools on one. You have a marking gauge, you have a square, you have a 45-degree angle. There's a little bubble here for level. You always want to be on the level. See that? This is a combination square. It fits in your belt real nice. This is everybody knows what this is. This is a hammer. And hammers are sold by the weight of the head. That is how you buy a hammer. They range from little tack hammers all the way up to a 32-ounce framing hammer. After that, they turn into small sledges. Here's some nail sets. Everybody in the shop knows what a nail set is. You take it and what do I say? Hit it, tap, tap, drives the nail into the wood. We have pliers. These are real tiny pliers, little slip joint pliers though, just the same. But every now and then you need pliers on the job. What do we call this? This is a sliding T-bevel, remember? Real easy, sliding T-bevel. Perfect. Fits in your pouch. Fits in your work belt real nice. You always need one of them. This here is a giant handsaw. This thing is very old. You can tell by the decorative handle on it. And the carpenters in the old days, they bought one handsaw and they used it their entire career. They sharpened the blade. Today, when you use a saw and it gets dull, you throw it out and you buy another one. But the old time carpenters, they lived and died and used this saw. That was their livelihood. Of course, you always need a screwdriver. I like to use a 4-in-1 screwdriver because it fits in the belt. You don't have a bunch of screwdrivers, but everyone knows it's a screwdriver. You have a Phillips head and a flathead. So let's talk about some dangerous tools. This is called a utility knife or a razor knife. Now students, I don't even let the North Campus students use the razor knife. I'm afraid they're going to hurt themselves. This will cut you so bad. And I don't let the South Campus touch it either. But when you grow up and you go out on your own, you're going to need one of these in your belt. Same with the chisels. I let the North use the chisels. This is an old-time chisel. Look how worn down that thing is. This thing's probably 100 years old. And then we have a wood plane. Everybody knows what a wood plane is. Wood plane, wood rasp. We have 4-in-1 wood rasp in the shop. This is an old rasp. This has one. It has two, a bevel, a flat and a round, but it's not a 4-in-1. I like the 4-in-1. And of course, this is a tool belt. A little tiny tool belt for me. I don't need anything that big. Oh, here they are. I forgot all about these. This is a tape measure. 25-foot, Stanley, and it has a lock. You don't need a tape measure this big unless you're building sheds or houses. But it's always good to have one. Right here in the cabinet is a folding rule. And they're the two different types of measuring devices in the carpentry field. This is an old folding rule. A lot of my tools are old. They were given to me by men that have stopped working and passed on. Of course, a chalk line. I've shown you this in the shop. We'll lock it there. We'll lock it here. We stretch it, clear the line, snap. There's no straighter line than that. Anyway, reel it in like a fishing rod. Chalk line, can't live without it. This, everyone knows, is a bench hook. We'll talk about that later. And unfortunately, for everybody that fights doing math, eventually you're going to need to do math. So I always keep a small calculator in my pouch. This is a scroll saw. It's a tiny little saw for doing crafts. It's not a bad saw to own, but it's basically just used for crafting. Nice saw to get started with. Over here is my drill press. Of course, it's not as big as the one in the shop, but it does the trick. See? It does the same thing that the one in the shop does. Over here is a specialty tool. This is a hollow chisel mortiser. It's for making mortise and tenon joints, mainly for doors, cabinets, and screen doors, different types of joinery you would use while being a cabinet maker. Over here, once again, it's not as impressive as the one in the shop, but it does the same thing. This is called a compound miter saw. And the reason it's called a compound miter saw because it can cut an angle that way and this way. And that's called a compound miter. Just like that. It's turned to the angle and tilted to the angle. It works very well for me. By the way, Mr. Boucher called and he reminded me to remind you guys to always wear your safety glasses in the shop. Over here is a saw that they've more or less done away with. The bigger shops have them, the older shops have them. This is called a radial arm saw. And if you can see, it has a stacked dado on it, and it cuts a path this big, just like that. Over here is just a sander. Sometimes when you make round stuff, you need to have a nice sander, a sanding belt to clean up your mess. This is built into a vacuum cleaner that's tied into the thing, so when I turn it on, it doesn't blow dust all over my shop. Here we go. It's a great tool to have. Over here, this is my wood lathe. It's once again not as big as the one in the shop, but you can make an awful lot of money owning a wood lathe. It's a specialty tool. Not too many people own wood lathes. Over here is a air compressor, right? And you can hook up different things to it. You can hook up a gauge to air gauge to fill your tires up outside. You can use a nail gun, or you can blow it. Use it to blow dust. Over here is the bandsaw, and this is almost identical to the one in the shop. I really like my bandsaw, and once again, a bandsaw is one continuous band. You see that? That's pretty cool, and that's how it works. Over here we have a router on a router table. We have a router freehand, Underneath that is a planer. It's a 12.5-inch planer. It's a portable planer, but it works for me. Of course, this thing here, this is what a carpenter needs. This is a Milwaukee hole shooter, and this drill almost weighs as much as I do. Let's see what else we have. Well, I guess that's oh, how could I forget? Here's my table saw. I'm very proud of my table saw. As you can see, it's spotless, and it works like a charm. Listen to that. Right here, these are all my hand tools here. We have a mechanic's box, a carpenter's box, a circular saw, a sander, a small nail gun, a big nail gun, my electrical tools, and my drills, and a jigsaw, and that's about it. I'll see you next time in the shop.